If you're new to photography, you're probably starting to realize pretty quickly that this is a fairly expensive hobby. And because of that, you're probably also starting to try and make some money from your expensive hobby to be able to pay for said expensive hobby. And herein, I introduce today's problem: photographing weddings and getting macro shots of one of the most important parts of the day, the wedding rings. But as a new photographer that's just starting out, I don't have the money to go and buy a dedicated macro lens specifically for this tiny portion of the wedding day, especially when I'm barely charging half for a wedding at the moment of what an actual macro lens would cost. I've only done a couple of weddings so far, and even though my shots aren't really that bad, they're also not really that great. And truth be told, you could be mistaken for thinking that you need to go and get your eyes checked because they aren't really that sharp. Now, I have my third wedding coming up in a couple of weeks. And no, I don't mean my third wedding, I mean my client's third wedding. I mean my third wedding that I'm photographing, not my client's third wedding. You know what I mean. Anyway, I want to make sure that every single wedding that I do, that I up my game a little bit. But as I mentioned, the budget is slim to none, closer to the none mark. So I got myself a set of cheap and nasty extension tubes, which are these little babies right here. And today we're going to test them out. And just to be clear, you can buy super expensive versions of these. And by super expensive, I mean like $100, $150. These were $10. But I'm on a basically non-existent budget at the moment, so $10 to fix my problem sounds like a good idea as a starting point. So what are extension tubes? These are extension tubes. Now what they do, we have, I don't know if you can see it, 1, 2, and 3 on there. And all you do is, they sound like a horror film, is to pull them apart. You can use all 3, that is a possibility, or you can pull them off individually and they unscrew. I can have new glasses. So you take these and then you take off the cap at the back of your lens, and then you screw this onto one of these. Now I have, no, not that way, not that way, no, not that way, or that way. Hang on, one moment please. Oh no, there we go. Okay, I figured it out. And so you put that one onto there and it locks in. Now this little button here is what unlocks it. You pull it backwards and then you can unlock it and it comes apart again. So these ones are cheap. As I said, they're like $10. So when I attach this to the camera, I actually have no autofocus. So that's something to keep in mind. The more expensive ones do have all of the little sensor details to go from the camera all the way through to the lens, but these are literally just rings. So you do have to manual focus when you're using these cheap ones. Right, so if you want to, all you do is you just keep building them up and you can attach more than one. So then this bit gets attached into here somehow. I had a brief play with these the other day. Almost had a heart attack because I thought I couldn't detach them. So they're essentially a little ring which reduces the minimum focusing distance, which basically means that you can actually get closer to your subjects without it getting blurry, because you know what your camera's like. You get within the certain amount that you're allowed to and then it starts getting blurry. So basically you can now get actually physically closer to your subject, which is what is going to allow you that magnification. Now there are a few cons and I will be mentioning them throughout the video, so make sure that you stay tuned for those, because as cool as these are, especially for only $10, there are a few little things because they're only $10. Anyway, let's get some photographs set up and we can start practicing with these. Okay, so today I have some jewelry and some ring boxes and these fabulous high heels that I borrowed off a friend of mine, which I'm going to use to try and get some gorgeous close-ups of the ring. I really wanted to test that out. I've seen some fabulous ring shots perched in between the high heels. I've also got, these are some old, probably can't hear me, these are some old numbers that I had for the kids' birthday, like balloon numbers, and I was going to throw them out and I thought actually they might make a fabulous backdrop. Now I've got quite a bit of light coming in at the moment, straight in this window. I don't know if the sun's going to come out, but let's take some photos and see how this goes. Right, so let's see. Now, I have my fabulous, expensive, like $2 shop engagement ring here that I'm going to be using for the shoot. Also discovered that TACK is going to be your best friend for this as well, because you need a tiny bit of TACK just to keep those rings in there. So let's see how we go. And these are my friend's high heels, and they have been worn for her wedding day. So this one is missing its base. So since I'm not going to be photographing the very bottom of that, I'm just going to do that to make them even. And then we have, please stay. Now also, I don't know if this is a good idea for real wedding rings. Clean the ring. Now I am starting with my 50mm because I tried putting this on these, and this is the first con that you need to be careful of. This weighs a ton, and these are kind of flimsy, especially when you've got all three of them on here. I would not trust this $2,000 lens on these $10 extension tubes. So if you are going to do it, make sure you're always holding your lens as well, because I don't want to be responsible for you breaking your lens. So do be careful if you're using a heavier lens with these extension tubes. And also I'm popping these in the background because it should hopefully make some really pretty gold bokeh. So right now my ISO is sitting at about 500, but I have this on 1250 for shutter speed because my hands are shaking like crazy. So the other downside I think of this is if you're not confident with manual focus, or you're not confident with being able to alter your settings on the fly, it's definitely something I would recommend working with and playing with. Okay, so as you can see, I have put a light on, which gives me a lot more lighting down into here. I absolutely would not recommend trying one of these on the wedding day. So absolutely get them, play with them, test them, and for $10, it's not that bad. Now I'm going to change lenses and see if that makes a difference. That's interesting. I have a better focal plane with this longer lens. I have a much larger focal plane, which means that I can get more of the ring in. But I am having to push my ISO up. I currently have my ISO at 1600 and my shutter speed at 1250. If you had a tripod, this might not be that much of an issue. You might be able to take your shutter speed down, but right now because I'm shaking so much doing this, I want to make sure that I'm absolutely capturing it super sharp. And of course, the longer of this, I'm not getting the nice bokeh I was a moment ago, so let's maybe rearrange to allow for that bokeh. Okay, now on the back of some cameras, there is this little button that looks like a magnifying glass, and if you do push it a couple of times, it will magnify right in. So, not that you can see anything at the moment because that's not anywhere near sharp. Oh, there we go. There's my salt lamp. But that is it magnified. So then, but as you can see, I don't have any autofocus on it. I'm shaking a lot, which is another reason that I've got my shutter speed up so much. So this is something that you might need to play with to figure out. Also, I'm burst firing some of these and slightly moving back as I burst fire because I can't quite tell. My eyesight's not quite as good as it used to be. I can't quite tell because the autofocus doesn't work. So I figure if I burst fire and slowly move back, that I'm eventually going to get one in that series that's actually in focus. So I'm hoping for that. Let's see how that let's say technique works, shall we? Okay, so I'm just going to take you through a couple of quick things in Lightroom. I have imported photos. I've been through a couple of them. I haven't even been right to the end, but I just wanted to show you guys something. So for instance, right back here when I was using the 50, this is the 50mm lens, and if we zoom in, we can see that there's a few little bits that are kind of, maybe in focus, sort of. You can actually see all the imperfections in the ring. It's a $2 shop ring, so, you know, don't judge me. You can see that it's really not doing any good, let's be honest. So, however, when I went to the longer lens, and I was able to get a little bit more depth, then we ended up with shots like this. So this is proof of concept. It does work, and you can see that it's still not fabulous, but it's doing pretty good. And then if we click through these ones, I have chucked some edits on these ones. We go into this. Did I denoise that? I haven't denoised this one yet. However, I have denoised this one, and I've cleaned it up a little bit. So here's the thing, I need to clean up this. Part of this is probably because it's reflecting part of me as well, which is not ideal. Let me see if I can find a better one. That one. So this is proof as well that if you keep shooting, and if you move around a little bit, because things aren't perfect, because you don't have the autofocus, you can still get some fantastic shots. And if you zoom in on this one, it's pretty clear. I am pretty happy with this, considering that this is an extension tube and not a proper macro lens. And I'm pretty sure that somebody getting this as an image is going to be pretty happy with that too. Now, I've pushed the clarity up on this one as well. So if we go up, I have pushed the clarity and the texture up on this. And there is a little bit of fringing, this little purple bit here, but I think that considering everything, if that's the worst that I'm dealing with, is this little bit of fringing, and take into account, again, this is a $2 shop ring. So I have no idea if this is going to be because of that reason. But I'm still pretty stoked with this photo, and it is still 10 times better than the other ones that I was getting. And if I keep going through, these kind of just keep getting better and better. And then when you stick it in black and white, I think that is an exceptional photo, and it's certainly much better than I can get on my traditional lens when it comes to a little bit closer up photography. And if I was a bride, I would be happy with this shot. So as I said, I'm mucking around with some presets, and for those of you that have watched some of my other videos and you saw the one like, I'm leaving Adobe, I've had to come crawling back, and that will be an entire another video. But needless to say, Lightroom's doing an incredible job here. So I'm pretty happy with these, and we'll get back to the video. So to be honest, to get some of these details, especially considering this detail is probably 5 inches long, obviously that's not all going to be in focus, but you do want more than just a sliver of focus in there. So I would say that using a longer length, I've got mine on about 100mm at the moment. So, and that I think is going to give me a decent focal plane. Now the thing is, with the exception of having my handy dandy light box, I'm just using window lighting. Okay, now the other interesting thing is I've turned this off, so there's no light coming out of this, but anything you can find to create an additional reflective surface can be of use. So even if you go and find a bridesmaid's dress or like flower girl dress or something like that, there's bound to be something, a white pillow in the room, anything that you could prop up to bounce back some of that light. So this, just to be clear, this isn't on. I'm only using it as a reflector. So if I angle that towards the sun predominantly, and just pick one of those gemstones to kind of stand out above the rest, if you will. I'm just going to pop the ring box in here and see if I can just prop that up a tiny bit and aim it just a little bit more towards the window. And that has come out tack sharp. Also, take note of things like this. This has some spiky bits, so if you're ever dealing with jewelry that might have a spiky bit, please be careful if you're putting it on top of somebody's wedding dress. So, because it might just do something you don't want it to. And let's just bring this back in to reflect some more light down. Okay, so when it comes to the pros and cons, there's a little bit on both sides. The pros are that it's cheap. $10 is a pretty easy way to step into macro photography. These are lightweight and really portable. I could wear them as earrings. They're that light. Anyway, so you can just throw them in your bag and they're there if you need them. And they can be used with the various lens lengths to be able to get the depth of field that you're after. So when we use the 50, for example, there was a very thin line of what was actually in focus. So I've got the 55 to 300, you might have a 75 to 200 or something along those lines, but I had this most of the time sitting at about 100. So if you have a 70 to 200, that's more than enough for what you will need to get a decent focal plane. And the other thing was that even though I did decide sort of on a distance and basically focused it, then I physically moved in and out to really nail that focal length that I wanted. Now the cons, anytime you're using a long lens, if you've ever taken your zoom lens and put it to 300 millimeters and then tried to focus on something far away, you'll notice that the whole thing looks like it's shaking. So I did have to put up my shutter speed to account for my hands shaking. So that was a bit of a pain because that then meant that I wasn't getting as much light in that I would have liked, which meant that I needed to bump up my ISO to be able to account for that. Now, if you're in a place where you've got lighting available, then that might not be an issue for you. But if you're just going along and you're using natural lighting, make sure you get a window that you're getting a really clear light coming through so that you get the best that you can. And the other con, as I said, you really have to, I use glasses for close-up stuff these days. I made sure that I did burst shot because I genuinely think that as I move very, very slowly, that one of those is going to be in TACK sharp focus. I did zoom into a couple, some of them are TACK sharp. I would have put some up on the screen anyway so you'll be able to see, but allow yourself that extra space. And the other thing is, you can always do shots with both the macro, with both these extension tubes, as well as your normal lens as a backup. So if none of the ones come out on your extension tubes, at least you know that you're going to still have some solid shots, even if they might just be a little bit blurry. It's fine, you just put them into black and white, it's not a problem. You might just want to do some backup shots while you're going with those. And as I said, $10, cheap and nasty. This is not going to be weatherproof, so I wouldn't take this out in the rain like I would with my normal, like if my lens is connected directly to my camera, I don't think twice about it getting wet. I absolutely would not trust these. The other thing is this funny little thing here, looks like a button, looks like you should push it, but you don't, you pull it backwards. Because I was freaking out that, oh my gosh, that's stuck to my camera. And I started freaking out the first time I put them on. So no, does come off, you just need to pull it backwards or forwards, and then everything fits back on as it should. Oh, that was really interesting. I was actually using I picked up the wrong lens. I was actually using my 55 to 250, which is for my other camera. So that's a really interesting thing. If you use these tubes, they basically become a converter. So there's something new. That might be a pro, that might be a con. I'm not sure, I'll wait till I check the photos. I may have screwed myself by not using the bigger lens, but that's okay. So on my full frame, I can't stick this on because this is for my crop sensor. Anyway, let's just get a lens on there so we don't get dust in it for now. Right, happy camera, happy lens, happy Tracy. So overall, I think I'm actually quite happy with them. Like I said, I'm gonna go edit those photos, make sure that I put them up in the video, so obviously you would have seen them by now. you can judge for yourself whether or not you think the quality is good. And just remember as well, this is only for macro shots. This is only for those really close-up tight shots, which is a really small part of the wedding. And then obviously you'd step back and get some slightly wider shots of the details anyway, so you've always got backups there. So if you've used extension tubes before, or you're currently using them, I would love to hear your experiences. Are you having successes with them? Are you using the slightly more expensive ones? Or are you like me and using the cheaper, nasty ones for starters? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. It's fine. I'm fine. It's okay. Oh, Liz. I might just, you know. The photographer that can't use. Be nice or I'll throw it at you.
Behind the scenes, we didn't capture any. So.
No. Because our mum that's a photographer didn't turn it on. Oh my gosh. Okay. The little red dot means it's recording. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'll survive. Right. Where was I?